You ever notice how some old houses have stairs that creak in a rhythm, like they're counting something? Michael and his family thought they found the perfect home, until every third stair creaked at the same time each night. Not from someone coming up, but from something coming down. And when they ignored it, their dreams turned inside out. This isn't just a haunting, it's a reversal of reality, where the attic holds not dust and cobwebs, but twisted versions of themselves. And the worst part, you can board up a door, but you can't stop what you've already become. Some houses creak, it's just old wood settling, right? That's what Michael thought too. Just another aging house on a quiet street. Perfect for a fresh start with his wife Anna and their 6-year-old son, Theo. But on the very first night, something felt wrong. The third stair creaked. Then, 3 seconds later, it creaked again. Not loud, not violent. Just a slow, deliberate sound. 3 steps. Then silence. Every night. Same time, same rhythm. At first, they brushed it off. The usual things people tell themselves to sleep better. But when their son started drawing things he'd never seen, gray versions of their family with no mouths and bleeding eyes, Michael realized this wasn't just a haunting. Something upstairs was watching them. Something that wore their faces. The attic isn't just part of the house. It's the house's heart. And it's trying to flip reality. Up is down. Memories twist. Dreams bleed into daylight. And every time the third stair creaks, it's not just a warning. It's an invitation. This story isn't about a ghost. It's about what we become when we let the past go unchecked. It's about the version of yourself you buried so deep it had to crawl out of the attic to be seen again. So, if you're brave enough, keep listening. Just don't look at the attic door. Story number 1. There were no real roads to get to Classic, Alaska. Just a weather-beaten airstrip, a handful of snowmobiles, and the sound of wind that never stopped whispering. The locals were used to the cold, used to things going quiet. But that spring, the silence broke. It started with a body. Not the way you'd expect one either. Not frozen stiff like a hiker who'd lost their way or chewed up by a bear. No. This one was different. She looked alive. Her skin was pale as bone, lips blue but full, black hair tangled like seaweed under the ice. Her eyes were shut, eyelashes curled gently, as if she were just resting. The ice had held her like a secret for almost 2 centuries, until it started to melt. Dr. Lena Cross was flown in from Anchorage after the village chief called the university. They wanted a geologist, someone who could explain why the glacier had receded faster than ever before. Lena, 35, serious, with dark hair and sharper eyes, had spent her life studying ice. But even she didn't expect to find a corpse so well preserved it looked like it could speak. It would have been a remarkable discovery, if only it had stayed that way. The girl was airlifted out in a metal pod, but before the helicopter even cleared the mountains, something strange happened. First, the pilot went silent over the radio. Then the chopper veered, dipped, and disappeared into the trees. They found it the next day, burned to cinders. No sign of the body, no sign of the pilot either. That same night, Joe Hanley's dogs wouldn't stop howling. Joe was one of those Alaskan men you couldn't place by age, somewhere between 40 and 70, always smelled like smoke, wore the same patched coat every day. He said he saw someone standing in the tree line, a girl in a thin white dress, no shoes. Her skin glowed blue under the moonlight. He called out, but she didn't move, just stared. He fired a warning shot. She was gone. It wasn't long before People began disappearing. A teenage boy who went ice fishing alone. An older woman on her walk to the chapel. Even the sheriff. No signs of struggle, just silence. And always cold. Lena began digging through the village records. There wasn't much, but the local elder, Arnak, invited her into his small cabin, where dried herbs hung from the ceiling and the air smelled like stories. She was our shame, he said, lighting a pipe. Her name was Taya. In the old tongue, it means wind. That never stops. He told Lena about a terrible winter back in 1837. The village was starving. No sun for weeks. They believed a dark spirit had cursed the land. To make peace, the elders chose a child to offer it. A girl. The shaman said the spirit would sleep if it was fed. So they walked her up the glacier, laid her down, and left her there. She never died, Arnak whispered. The spirit took her soul, but her body stayed behind. And now she's awake. Lena tried to reason it out. Maybe the air crash jolted something loose. Maybe it was all psychological. A mass panic event. But when she saw Joe again, she knew something was wrong. He wasn't Joe anymore. He stood too still, smiled too wide. His eyes, once kind, were now pale and cold, the color of glacial ice. He spoke in a girl's voice. Taya remembers you. Lena ran. As more people were taken, possessed as Arnak said, Lena became obsessed with the old story. She found journal pages from one of the original settlers, buried deep in the village. Archives. One name appeared again and again. Cross. Her own great-great-grandfather had been part of the group that led the sacrifice. He was one of the ones who chose Taya. That night, she had a dream. She was back on the glacier. The wind screamed. The girl lay at her feet, eyes wide open. Now, full of betrayal. You carry their blood, the girl hissed, and blood must pay. Lena woke up covered in frost. She knew what she had to do. With Arnak's help, they lured the girl's possessed form to the edge of the glacier. Lena had rigged explosives in the same crevice where Taya had once been laid. She wore a thermal suit, but she felt the chill creeping through. "You want justice?" Lena called into the dark. "Then take me. I'm the last cross." The girl appeared from the trees, barefoot again, her breath curling like smoke in the air. Her face was beautiful and broken. Lena pressed the detonator. The ice cracked and roared, a blizzard of snow and light, and then silence. They found Lena's coat days later. Nothing else. For a while, things calmed down. No more disappearances. No more voices in the woods. But the glacier didn't stop melting. It sped up. Not just there, in Greenland, Antarctica, the Alps, as if something had stirred beneath the world's frozen skin. As if the spirit inside Taya had awakened something deeper, something ancient. And somewhere, deep beneath the thinning ice, the girl waits. Not dead, not gone. Just cold. Story number 2. Roger Vale didn't care for noise. That's part of why he opened the shop. Vale's Curiosities sat on the edge of town, next to a boarded-up diner and a tire shop no one used anymore. He liked it quiet, dusty, slow. Old. Clocks, worn books, forgotten toys, and radios with dials instead of buttons. Things that had stories, but didn't speak. That changed the day he bought the TV. It was a 1953 Dumont, walnut frame, thick screen, and rabbit ears bent at strange angles. Some old man from upstate had passed away, and the family didn't want to haul it to the dump. Roger saw it sitting in the back of the estate sale barn, humming ever so slightly, even though it wasn't plugged in. He told himself it was just feedback. Old wiring. Nothing more. He bought it for $40 and drove home with it in the back seat, where it felt heavier than it should have been. The first whisper came that night. Roger lived above the shop, in a small apartment that smelled like mothballs and coffee. At exactly 3:33 a.m., the TV in the shop, unplugged mind you, crackled to life. It wasn't loud, just a soft fuzz like a gentle cough in the dark. Roger got out of bed, barefoot on cold wood, and went downstairs. The screen glowed faintly. Face flickered, just for a second. Then a whisper, right before the image vanished. "Help me." Roger stood frozen. Not scared, not yet, just confused. The kind of confusion that crawls down your spine and settles into your gut. The power cord still lay on the floor, unplugged. The next night the voice came again. Different this time. A child, maybe. It said, "They're watching. They never stopped." Roger unplugged the antenna, taped the plug down, and threw a sheet over the damn thing. Still, at 3:33 it flicked on like clockwork. The third night, it showed something else. Room. Empty. Gray. A man sitting in a metal chair, wires strapped to his temples. He was screaming silently. Behind him, a wall of TVs. Faces pressed against the glass, all of them watching. That's when Roger started writing things down. Dates, times, phrases, images. He wasn't the kind of guy who scared easy. Divorced twice, served in Vietnam, came back quieter than he left, but this was something different. This wasn't a haunting, it was a signal. Nora showed up around that time. His niece, tech nerd, big on smart homes, tiny drones, and things Roger didn't want anywhere near his rotary phones. But he needed help. He didn't know what else to do. She set up a digital recorder, a temperature gauge, even ran a spectrum analyzer on the static. Roger didn't understand half of what she said, but she looked worried. Kept muttering things like unknown frequency and shouldn't be possible. One night, while reviewing footage, she gasped and paused the tape. There, in the middle of the static, hidden like a watermark, was Roger's face. Mouth open. Eyes wide. Dead. Things got worse after that. The TV stopped waiting for 3:33. It came, on during the day. Blasted noise like screams passed through an old radio. Lights in the shop flickered in rhythm with the static. The jukebox Roger never plugged in started playing distorted swing music, backward. Worse still, the signal started spreading. The microwave wouldn't stop flashing 3:33. Nora's phone rang with unknown numbers, just silence on the line. Customers said their hearing aids buzzed when they walked by the TV. And then the messages changed. No more please, just one phrase, over and over. One signal, one mind, one body. Roger turned to Father Drennan, the town priest, not because he believed in exorcisms, but because he was out of options. The old man stood in front of the TV with a rosary in one hand and holy water in the other. The screen lit up. His own face appeared. He blinked, and then the blood vessels in his eyes burst. He dropped to his knees, shaking, muttering words no one understood. Roger pulled him away before the signal did more. "You can't cast out what isn't dead," the priest whispered, trembling. "That thing. It was made." Nora did some digging. She found declassified documents. Old, buried ones. From the 1950s Project Deep Echo, an experiment by a government agency, probably CIA, on using low-frequency TV signals to reach other places, other minds. The human brain, it said, could receive broadcasts like a radio if the signal was just right. They tested it in secret. Volunteers didn't come back the same. Some didn't come back at all. Roger decided to end it. He waited for 3:33 a.m. held a sledgehammer. The screen flickered to life. He saw the shop. He saw himself. Then he saw blood. He didn't care. He swung the hammer hard. Glass shattered, sparks flew, smoke curled up like burnt paper. The signal went dark. He dropped the hammer and cried. Not because he was scared, because he was free. Or so he thought. The next morning, Roger opened the shop early, and there it was, sitting in the exact same spot, untouched. No cracks, no burns, still unplugged. The Dumont, 1953, and the clock read 3:33. Story number 3. The first thing you should know is that no one builds a house in Mourner's Hollow. Not unless they've already lost everything. Locals said the trees there leaned the wrong way, like they were trying to crawl out of the soil. Birds didn't nest. The ground stayed wet even in the summer. The whole place stank of rot, even when nothing had died. But teenagers? Teenagers don't listen to warnings, not when there's a dare involved. Jade didn't want to go, not really, but Kyle had that voice, the kind that made people follow even when they knew better. Britt rolled her eyes the whole time, calling it some Blair Witch YouTube crap. And Lex, well, Lex went because he thought he'd get laughs for screaming the loudest. There were 4 of them. There would only be one by the end. The house was worse than Jade expected. Twisted beams, a roof slanted like a broken neck, windows with warped glass that looked like crying eyes. It had sunk into the soft ground over time, tilting until it looked like it might slide into the earth completely. A single chimney pointed to the sky like a crooked finger. Lex said it looked like a Tim Burton set piece. Kyle said, "Stop stalling." And the door opened on its own. They stepped inside, and everything changed. The air shifted. The light went strange like the sky had blinked. The front door, when they turned back to check it, was just gone. Replaced by a wall of peeling green wallpaper. The house was bigger on the inside, but not in a cool way. In a wrong way. Staircases spiraled into nowhere. Doors led to brick walls. A hallway repeated itself over and over. Same crooked picture frame, same water stain, same cracked floorboard. "This is a trick," Britt said, but she didn't sound sure. Then Lex disappeared. 1 second he was behind them, cracking a joke about haunted toilets. The next, silence. Just his flashlight spinning in slow circles on the floor. They called his name. Nothing. Jade found a new door they hadn't seen before. It creaked open without a touch. Inside was a child's bedroom. Dusty. Quiet. On the bed was a photo. Lex. But he looked 10 years older. Hollow-eyed. Crying. In the picture, he was pressed against the wall, as if the house itself was swallowing him. It only got worse. Each room pulled a memory from them, their worst one. Britt saw her dad, the day he walked out and never came back, the way she'd begged him not to go, and how he didn't even look over his shoulder. Kyle saw the night his brother overdosed, the needle, the silence. Jade saw her sister. Rain, screeching tires, blood on the road, her fault. She was the one who'd dared her to sneak out. Now she was stuck reliving it, over and over, They tried to run, but the house didn't let them. Walls shifted, ceilings dropped low, stairs broke apart. Sometimes a room would vanish behind them like it had never existed. The air turned thick, the lights buzzed with static, and sometimes they heard something else. Weeping. Not theirs. Someone else. In the middle of it all, they found her, widow Marla, or what was left of her. She sat in a rocking chair that rocked by itself. Her hands were bone, skin like thin wax, but her eyes were alive, burning, wet, furious. "This house feeds on sorrow," she whispered. "I made it that way. I loved him so much I broke the world at them like a mother stares at bad children. Now I'm gone. But the house, it remembers, it needs." Then she vanished, but the walls pulsed, as if breathing. Kyle didn't make it. He tried to kick through a window, but the glass turned to smoke. Then to hands. They pulled him through. Jade heard him scream for a long time. Then it was quiet. Britt lasted longer. They found her curled up in a hallway that kept turning in circles. Her lips were moving, whispering something, over and over. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry." She didn't fight when the floor opened under her. She just let it take her. Jade ran, not because she was brave, because she was too scared to stop. She whispered her sister's name like a prayer, apologized 100 times, promised to make it right, and for some reason, the house let her go. She found herself outside, kneeling in the wet grass, heart slamming in her chest. She never found Lex, or Kyle, or Britt. All she had was their names and the crooked house behind her. But that wasn't the end. Jade tried to forget. Moved in with her aunt, got a job at a bookstore, told herself it was a dream, a breakdown, anything but what it really was. But then the signs started. Lights flickering at 3:33 a.m., pictures hanging crooked no matter how many times she straightened them. Whispers in her bedroom wall. One room, just one, waiting. And sometimes, she wakes up and finds muddy footprints on the carpet, leading to a door that wasn't there before. Story number 4. Tom Derry didn't talk much. He didn't need to. He let the wood speak for him. His workshop was an old converted barn on the edge of a sleepy New England town, the kind of place where the trees leaned in like they were listening, and the dust in the rafters never settled. Most folks around just called him the carpenter, like he didn't have a first name. He liked it that way. The only people he spoke to were Alice, the boy next door who always asked too many questions, and Dr. Madeline Grace, the town historian. She stopped by now and then for repairs to old furniture and stories buried in attic trunks. Tom was still raw after losing his daughter the year before. Sudden crib death, they said. No warning, no answers. She was here, and then she wasn't. His wife left not long after. Couldn't look at the crib anymore. Couldn't look at him, so Tom stayed behind. He kept his hands busy. That's how the trouble started. It came in on a foggy morning, delivered by a man with a gray truck and a strange look in his eyes. The antique crib was wrapped in old sheets and tied down with thick rope, like someone wanted to make sure it didn't escape. The man said it came from a burned-out farmhouse upstate. "Pre-Civil War," he muttered, "but you won't find this thing in any history book." Tom nodded, paid cash, dragged the thing into his shop. The wood groaned as it crossed the threshold. He thought it was just old. That night, Tom woke to something soft, something warm and strange, like a lullaby bleeding through the walls. It wasn't in English, maybe French, maybe nonsense. But the melody rocked back and forth, just like the sound of an old wooden cradle on the floorboards. He checked the baby monitor out of habit, even though the room had been empty for months. Static. In the workshop, the crib stood exactly where he left it, but the rope was untied. Over the next few days, Tom began sanding the crib down. The grain of the wood was tight, almost too tight. It resisted every tool. When he pressed his ear close, he swore he could hear something. Breathing. He found names carved under the headboard. Small ones. Faint, and not just one name. Dozens. Each with a date next to it. The oldest read, Clara, 1852. The newest, Hannah, 2022. His daughter's name. His hands went cold. He turned to Madeline for answers. She brought old records, church logs, burial documents, all circled around a single name. Eleanor Lyle, a midwife. Lost her baby during birth in 1852. The story went that she buried the child herself, then went mad. She built a crib and swore she'd never let another baby die again. They found her years later sitting in the rocking chair, humming to a bundle of rags. She was buried with the crib, or so they thought. Tom tried to destroy it. He hacked it apart with an axe, burned the pieces, threw the ashes into the river, but the next morning it was back. Perfect, untouched. The wood gleamed like it had been freshly polished. Ellis, the neighbor boy, came by that afternoon and asked, "Who's the baby in your shop, Mr. Derry? I saw her in the window." She waved at me. Tom didn't answer. That night, the lullaby came again. Only now. It said his name. Then the baby cries began. Soft at first, then louder, coming from the workshop, coming from inside his walls. His phone glitched. His lights flickered. The baby monitor, still plugged in out of habit, crackled with noise. Sometimes, he thought he saw little handprints on the window, and once, in the crib, something moved. Not a doll, not a shadow. Something breathing. Tom couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't think. He opened the workshop one final time, sat beside the crib. The room was cold, but the wood felt warm under his hand. Alive, and the lullaby was louder than ever. She just wants to keep them safe, Madeline had said. That was all Eleanor ever wanted. Safe, even in death. So Tom made a choice. He bricked up the doors, nailed the windows shut, locked himself inside. The neighbors said the workshop was quiet after that. Too quiet. Ellis said he saw Tom waving from the window sometimes, but no one could ever get in. The crib is still there, rocking, waiting. Story number 5. The town of Dern's Hollow hadn't seen rain in over 2 years. The river dried up first, then the creeks. Even the stubborn roots of the orchard trees gave in and cracked open like bones in the sun. The people stayed, like they always did, just smaller now, thinner, quieter. They prayed. They rationed. Some left. But those who stayed, they started whispering about the well, the one at the edge of the cemetery, the one with the old stones around. The one sealed shut long before any of them were born. They said it had started refilling. Elias Mercer wasn't the kind of man who believed in whispers. He was a city reporter. Hard facts, not haunted wells. But a strange letter had landed on his desk. Anonymous, yellowed, no return address. Just 5 words. They drink the watcher's gifts. Elias thought it was a joke. But curiosity is a funny thing. It nags at you, wears you down, and when you're between assignments and behind on rent, it drags you places you wouldn't normally go. He drove out to Durn's Hollow on a hot Monday morning. One gas station, one church, 2 stop signs, and one well, covered in warped oak planks and rusted iron chains, but wet, damp to the touch. The town was starving for water, but the ground around the well was green, too green. The first person he met was Pastor Reed. He was tall, soft-spoken, with hands that looked too clean for a drought. He smiled too often, spoke in verses even when he wasn't quoting scripture. "God has given us a second chance," he said, voice like honey overwrought. "We must be grateful and quiet." Elias asked about the well. The pastor only said, "It watches, it gives, it remembers." That night, Elias heard singing, not the nice kind. It came from the graveyard, dozens of voices, soft, slow, like a lullaby sung to something sleeping deep underground. He didn't sleep. The next morning, he met Abigail, a little girl, no more than 8. She followed him outside the diner and whispered, "Don't drink the water." Elias blinked. "Why not?" "They forget when they do," she said. "Their eyes go dark, like Daddy's." She showed him her arm. A long scar ran from wrist to elbow. "I cut myself so the well can't take me," she said plainly. "Blood makes it see you too clear." Then she ran. Elias started digging into the town's history. Old records, yellowed church notes, obituaries. He found mention of the Watcher Below in a journal from 1812, written by his own great-great-grandfather, Abraham Mercer. He was the one who sealed the well. It listens through the water. The final entry. Read. It feeds on guilt, on secrets. We gave too much. We buried it. But nothing stays buried forever. Elias felt a chill move through him. Not guilt. Recognition. He tried to leave. Car wouldn't start. Gas siphoned. People stopped smiling at him. The next night he followed them, the townsfolk, dozens of them, barefoot and whispering, walking in the dark toward the cemetery. Pastor Reed led them, his face glowing in the moonlight like a man possessed. They circled the well. They poured water into their palms, rubbed it over their eyes. Some cried, others laughed, and one by one, they spoke their darkest secrets. Confessions, betrayals, shame, and the well. It pulsed, glowed faintly, like something below was listening and loving every word. Then they noticed Elias watching. They dragged him forward. No fighting, just soft hands, like they were guiding a blind man to his fate. "Blood remembers," Reed whispered. "Your family tried to bury the truth, but now you will carry it." They chanted. The wind howled, and Elias was pushed. He fell into the dark. Water swallowed him whole, but he didn't drown. He drifted. Memories not his own flashed by. A mother who lost her son. A man who let his brother die in a fire. A girl who let her baby starve. Guilt, shame, regret. All of it feeding the thing below. It whispered his name. Mercer. It showed him his own sins. The one he buried. The one he never told anyone. The baby. The one he wasn't ready for. The one he left. It forgave nothing. When Elias opened his eyes, he wasn't in the water anymore. He was part of the well. He could see the town from deep below, hear every whisper, feel every shameful memory dripping into the water like ink into a glass, and he smiled, because now he understood what it meant to watch. And somewhere above, the town slept easy, believing their sins were gone. Story number 6. There were stories, of course. There always are. The Sable Coast Hotel had been standing since 1919, perched on the edge of a cliff where waves punched the rocks below like fists. People said it used to be glamorous. Ballrooms, piano bars, golden elevators, the works. Now it smelled like wet curtains and bleach. Room 616 had a bad reputation, the kind that doesn't make it into brochures or TripAdvisor reviews. Guests who checked in never checked out. Literally. No bodies, no luggage, just gone. The hotel said nothing. Police reports stacked dust. The door stayed locked until Naomi Creed came knocking. Naomi wasn't new to this. She didn't believe in ghosts exactly. Not the sheet-wearing, moaning kind, but she believed in energy, in the weight of things left unfinished. She'd spent 10 years chasing haunted spaces, trying to prove something to the world, and maybe to herself. She checked in under a fake name, wore her usual gear, recorder, minicam, a small bag of talismans and salt. Just in case, the clerk didn't blink when she asked about room 616. "End of the hall," he said. "Elevator won't go there. You'll need the stairs." He gave her the key. It was cold. The hallway stretched longer than it should have. Wallpaper, peeled like sunburn. The lights flickered, not randomly, but almost like a heartbeat. She found the door. Rig. The numbers looked backwards, like they were melting. Her breath fogged in the air, even though the hallway was warm. She unlocked it. The door opened inward, pulling her like a sigh. The room was normal. At first, bed, desk, mirror, nightstand with a Gideon Bible, heavy drapes over a single window. The air was dry and still like it hadn't been breathed in for years. But then she noticed things. The mirror didn't reflect the room. It reflected something older. The desk drawer was open, and inside was a half-written letter in her own handwriting. "I'm sorry, Rachel. I never came back. I tried, but I wasn't strong enough." Rachel, her sister. Dead 15 years now. Naomi dropped the letter like it. Burned. The room shifted, not violently, subtly. The wallpaper darkened. The carpet felt damp. The Bible on the nightstand was open now, though she hadn't touched it. The passage underlined read, "They cried unto the Lord in their trouble, and He delivered them out of their distress." She looked up. There was a man sitting on the edge of the bed. Thin, hollow, skin like wet paper. "I checked in for one night," he whispered, "but I've been here so long, I forgot my own face." His eyes were black pits, and Naomi knew he used to be a guest. She backed toward the door. It was gone. The wall was solid where the door had been. The man chuckled. "It only opens one way, and only when it wants to." Each item in the room began to pull on her. The mirror showed her childhood home, the night her parents died. The desk drawer held Rachel's old stuffed bear, burned along the edges. The carpet changed color and began to bleed, forming a pattern like a map of her life, her failures, her regrets. That's what room 616 fed on. It wasn't haunted, it was hungry. Naomi remembered more than she wanted to, how she promised to pick Rachel up that night, how she didn't, how the accident happened while Rachel waited in the cold. She'd spent years trying to explain it, to fix it, to bury it in other people's ghost stories. But the room knew the truth. and now it was eating her alive. The shadows in the corners stretched, grew teeth, began to crawl. Naomi grabbed the letter from the drawer, read the words again. "I'm sorry." I never came back. She stepped into the mirror. It felt like falling through her own reflection. She landed in the same room, but this time it was on fire. Flames licking the ceiling. The man from the bed was burning silently, smiling. Rachel stood in the corner. Just a little girl again. Naomi walked to her, held her. "I came back," she said. "I'm not running anymore." The flames vanished. The mirror shattered, and the Iwa door returned. Naomi walked out of room 616 just before sunrise. The clerk didn't look surprised. "Some make it back," he said. She nodded, exhausted. "The others? They become part of it." She drove home, burned her tapes, quit the job, but sometimes, when she closes her eyes, she hears the doorknob turn, because room 616 is still open, and it remembers everyone who's ever been there. Story number 7. College radio was dying, and Cal Mercer was just the guy to drag it into the grave with style. He wasn't a real student anymore, flunked out last spring, but he still had the midnight shift at WPRX 88.3, the old campus station buried in the basement of the Humanities building. It smelled like old carpet and burnt coffee. Half the equipment was older than his professors, but for Cal, it was the only place he felt alive. He'd show up at midnight, crack jokes nobody heard, play weird music that didn't follow FCC rules, and chain smoke while spinning records no one remembered buying. Until one night, someone sent him a record that didn't exist. No note, just a plain sleeve, black vinyl. No label, no track listing, just 3 words scratched faintly into the back. "Play me, Cal." The hairs on his arms stood up. He should have tossed it. Instead, he slid it onto the turntable and dropped the needle. What came out wasn't music, not at first. It started with a hum, low, like a heartbeat underwater, then a voice, female, crackling like it had traveled through time and lost pieces on the way. "Is anyone listening?" Cal froze. He thought it was a prank, some weird art piece, maybe a drama major trying to go viral. But then the voice said, his name. "Calvin Mercer. Do you remember the woods?" He ejected the record. His hands were shaking. He told Leah about it the next day. She was the station's sound engineer and the closest thing Cal had to a friend. Blunt, brilliant, and too smart to be stuck at a college where everything was falling apart. He played her the recording, except there was nothing on it. Dead air. She laughed. "You probably played side B by mistake," but there was only one side. The next night he played it again. Another voice. Male this time. "He dragged me into the lake. I was screaming. Nobody came." Cal didn't say anything, just stared at the walls while the station lights flickered and the air turned thick, like breathing through cotton. That night, he dreamed of the woods, of screams, of blood on his shoes. Professor Graves found him a few. Days later, he taught folklore and local history. Weird guy, kept a flask in his jacket and a pistol in his desk. "I heard what you played," Graves said quietly. "That record, it's not a recording." "What is it then?" "A spiritual vessel," he said. "A trap. A confession booth for the dead." Cal laughed it off until Graves pulled out a photo from 1984. 5 students, all murdered, none of the bodies ever found. One of them wore a varsity jacket, just like the one in Cal's closet, just like the one his father used to wear. Cal went digging through the attic the next morning. He found a shoebox. newspaper clippings, police reports, and a photo of his dad, young, grinning, standing beside the DJ booth in the very station Cal now worked in. Back then, it wasn't just a station, it was a hunting ground. The voices didn't want attention. They wanted justice. The more he played the record, the worse things got. The walls bled, the air warped. Listeners started calling in, saying they saw faces in their mirrors. One girl said her sister, who'd been missing for 30 years, walked out of the woods behind their house after the second broadcast. Her mouth sewn shut. Cal stopped sleeping, stopped eating. He just played the record. Again, and again, and again. Leah tried to destroy it. She took the record out back and smashed it, with a hammer. But when Cal walked into the booth that night, it was there, waiting on the turntable, spinning slowly. He understood then. It wasn't just broadcasting. It was becoming. Each time he played it, the frequency grew stronger. The veil between worlds got thinner. The dead didn't just want their stories told, they wanted someone to stay, to listen forever. Cal wrote one final message on the whiteboard. "Don't follow me." Then he closed the booth door, locked it, and cued the final track. The broadcast lasted 6 hours. People said they heard screaming, laughing, lullabies, Morse code, even their own names whispered back to them through the speakers. Then, silence. They found the booth empty. No Cal. Just a spinning record. No label. Only the words. He listens now. WPRX still broadcasts at night. Nobody runs it. Nobody answers the door. But if you tune in at exactly 3:33 a.m., sometimes you'll hear the dead, and if you're unlucky, they'll hear you too. Story number 8. Marcus Dale didn't talk much. Night shifts will do that to a man, especially the lonely ones. His booth sat out on Route 47, right before the old steel bridge. Nothing fancy. One lane, a little heater in the winter, coffee that tasted like cardboard, a radio that mostly worked. People came and went. Flash of headlights, roll of a window, a nod, a coin, a receipt. Nobody looked too long. That was the job. Quiet suited Marcus just fine. It was better than remembering. The key, first time he saw the car, he didn't think much of it. Black Lincoln, tinted windows, slow roll through the lane. The guy inside didn't speak, just stared. Pale skin, blank face, eyes like red smears. Blood, maybe, or something worse. The coin slid out from his hand and clinked into the tray. The car drove off into the dark. 5 minutes later, dispatch came over the radio. "Hey, Marcus, we just got a report. Deer caused a pileup by mile marker 3. 1 dead." He winced. "Copy that." But it wasn't the crash that stuck with him. It was the face. He swore he'd seen it before. The next night, the same car came. Same lane. Same time. Same bleeding eyes. Marcus stepped out of the booth this time, walked up to the window. The driver didn't blink, didn't move, just stared. Marcus backed off. Let him pass. 10 minutes later, another call. Motorcycle wreck on the curve. Fatal. By night 4, Marcus was shaking before sunset. Ellen, the dispatcher, asked if he wanted to switch shifts. "I'm fine," he said. "Just tired." He wasn't fine. He was remembering. The dreams came back that night. Rain. Screaming. Headlights spinning like a carousel. And the sound of metal folding in on itself. He'd locked that memory away, so deep even he didn't know the full truth. Not until he saw the driver's face again. The fifth time the car came, Marcus looked closer, and he saw it. It was him, a little older, a little grayer, but definitely him. He didn't let the gate rise, stood in front of it, hands out. "No more," he muttered. The lights on the booth flickered. The radio crackled. The car didn't stop. It vanished. Right through the gate. Right through him. He collapsed. Then dispatch called again. House fire. 3 dead. Tony, the local cop, came by the next day. "You all right, Dale? You look like you haven't slept in a year." "I'm good," Marcus lied. Tony looked at the logbook. "You ever lose anyone out here?" Marcus shook his head, but something tugged at the edge of his memory. Twisted metal. A red dress. A screaming girl. His car. His hands on the wheel. Rain. Too fast, too drunk. The 6th night, the car didn't wait for the gate. It was already inside the booth. Marcus blinked, and there it was, where his chair should be. He backed into the corner, reached for the emergency button. Didn't work. The walls closed in. The heater blew cold. The windows fogged over, and the driver turned to him and whispered, "You were supposed to die." He ran, out into the road. Rain slicked the pavement. He could see the headlights coming again. The Lincoln, moving slow, like it was waiting for him. He didn't move, didn't flinch. "Do it," he whispered. "Finish it." The car hit him. He opened his eyes to the sound of a bell. It was 11:59 p.m. His coffee was hot. The logbook was empty, and the black Lincoln was pulling into the lane. Again. Marcus didn't scream, didn't move, because he finally understood. This was his loop, his punishment. The road never ended. The toll was always due, and he would keep collecting until the night he truly died. Story number 9. Nobody talked about the old Greystone Asylum anymore. The building had stood for nearly 100 years, out past the train tracks, surrounded by fences and whispers. Closed since the 70s, condemned since the 90s, and finally, knocked down when the city decided to build Ashwood Park in its place. It was supposed to be a fresh start. New benches, a dog run, a pretty pond where the old courtyard used to be. But when the workers started digging near the East Hill, where the crematorium once stood, they found something else. Metal urns, hundreds of them, unmarked, just ashes. Clara Monroe felt it the moment they were disturbed. She was home when it hit her. A migraine, sharp and sudden. Then came the whispering. Quiet at first, like wind through tall grass. Then louder. Names. Names she didn't know. She'd been a psychic medium for most of her life. Read palms, held seances, helped people find peace with the dead. But this was different. This wasn't one spirit trying to speak. It was dozens. And they were panicking. She went to the park the next morning. Construction tape flapped in the breeze. The ground around the hill was cracked open like a wound. Derek, the site foreman, stood nearby, red-faced and sweating. "You hear about the weird stuff, too?" he asked. Clara nodded. He leaned in. "One of my guys forgot his wife's name yesterday. Just went blank. And a kid from the neighborhood, Maya, showed up crying because she couldn't remember her own birthday." He scratched his head. "Hell, I keep forgetting where I parked and I don't even drive." That's when Clara knew the spirits weren't just awake. They were hungry. Maya found Clara later that day clutching a worn notebook with shaky hands. "I started writing things down," she said, "because they keep slipping." She pointed to a sentence written 3 times in the corner of the page. I am Maya. I am Maya. I am Maya. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Sometimes I don't think I am. Clara went back that night. No candles, no chants, just her and the urns. The soil around them smelled like burnt sugar and dust. She touched one. Cold. Heavier than it should have been. The whispers returned instantly. Who am I? Please remember me. It's dark here. I forget myself. They weren't angry, just lost. Clara saw flashes. A woman in a straitjacket humming to herself. A man pacing a padded room, fingers covered in ink. A boy no older than 12, rocking in a corner, all forgotten, all erased. She asked the spirits what they wanted, and they told her, "We want to live again." So they were doing the only thing they could, slipping inside the living, borrowing memories, wearing lives like coats, not to harm, but to feel real again. Only, each time they entered a mind, a little more of the host disappeared. Maya. Derek. Even Clara felt it. She forgot where she grew up, her mother's face, her first love's name, and deep inside, she realized something terrifying. She didn't have real memories. She searched records. There was no birth certificate, no school ID, no family. Nothing before age 22. That's when she first woke up as a medium, found by an older woman in upstate New York, half conscious on a church bench with a note in her pocket. She listens. She helps. Be kind. To her. She'd thought she was gifted, but the truth was worse. She was one of them. The next night she gathered the urns, made a circle, lit a single white candle, and spoke. I remember you. I remember all of you. She named them. The names. They whispered in her dreams. The ones they used to have before they were locked away and burned without graves. And as she spoke, she felt them inside her. Not invading. Merging. A crowd of forgotten lives folding into hers. Not with violence, but with relief. She became their voice. Their keeper. Their vessel. In the morning, the whispers stopped. Derek remembered his daughter's birthday. Maya smiled and said her name without looking at the notebook. The ashes were still there, but they were quiet now. And Clara. She wasn't Clara anymore. Not really. She still walked the park sometimes, smiled at children, sat by the pond and whispered names no one else remembered. And if you talked to her long enough, you might feel a tug in the back of your mind, a memory you don't recognize, a voice that's not yours, but don't be afraid. It just means someone forgotten is trying to exist again, for a little while longer. Story number 10. The house on Brookvale Lane looked normal enough. 2 stories. White paint peeling a little on the siding. A porch swing that creaked in the wind. A yard full of weeds and forgotten toys. It was cheap, which meant something was probably wrong with it. But Michael didn't care. He had a wife, a kid, and too much debt to argue with square footage. "We'll make it ours," Anna had said, holding his hand as they signed the papers. Theo, their 6-year-old, just stared at the attic window and said, "It's watching us." The first night was quiet. Mostly. Around 2 a.m., Michael woke to a sound. Creak. Then 2 seconds of silence. Creak. Every third stare. He figured it was the house settling. Old wood, wind in the gutters, maybe raccoons. But it happened again the next night. Same time, same rhythm. Creak. Pause. Creak. Pause, always 3 steps. Then nothing, like something was coming down, slowly. He checked the stairs. Nothing there, but the attic door was open a crack. Theo started drawing things, not stick figures or superheroes, but faces, twisted, stretched, eyes too wide, teeth too flat. He called them the people from up there. Michael found one drawing under Theo's pillow. It was a picture of the family, except their eyes were all black, and their skin was gray, and they had no mouths. Theo had scribbled in red crayon, "They're us," but wrong. Anna had dreams. Dark ones. She said the house wasn't just haunted, it was upside down. That the attic was a mirror, only the mirror was winning. "I dreamed I went upstairs," she whispered one morning, "but when I got there, I was already waiting for me." Michael told her to stop watching horror movies before bed, but deep down, he was scared too. They started locking the attic door, nailed it shut, piled furniture against it. But the sounds never stopped. Creak, 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 and always at 2:03 a.m. like clockwork. One night, Michael didn't sleep. He waited at the top of the stairs. The creaking started. 3 steps, but the footsteps weren't coming up. They were coming down. He raised the flashlight. What he saw made him drop it. It was himself, but not quite. Older, paler, thinner, eyes sunken, mouth missing. The figure stared at him for a moment, then melted into the shadows. Michael didn't sleep after that. They tried to leave, packed bags, loaded the car, but Theo screamed when they tried to drive off. "He's in the back seat," he cried, pointing to the rear window. Michael looked. Nothing there. But the 3rd stair creaked, and the house locked its front door by itself. They turned to the town librarian, who knew everything about old houses and worse things. She said Brookvale Lane had a curse, something about an old architect who built the attic as a memory trap, place where regret and pain could be hidden. But too much pain. And the attic reverses itself, becomes the real world. She called it an inversion point. Once the house remembers too much, she said, it tries to fix it by replacing you. That night, the family huddled together in the living room. But dreams don't respect locked doors. Theo dreamed of the attic opening like a mouth. Anna dreamed of mirrors turning inside out. And Michael dreamed of himself climbing down, step by step, toward his own sleeping body. When he woke, his hands were covered in splinters. From climbing up. He knew what had to be done. The attic was hungry. It needed someone to keep the door shut from the inside. He kissed Anna, held Theo close. Then he climbed the stairs, step by step. Creak, creak, creak. The attic welcomed him like an old friend. Inside, he saw 1,000 versions of himself, the pain, all the guilt, all the fear. Waiting. He walked past them and shut the door behind him. The next morning, the stairs were silent. No more creaks. The attic door stayed shut. Theo's drawings went back to normal. Anna smiled again. Michael was gone, but the house was still standing, still watching, still waiting, and one day, another family will move in, and the 3rd stair will creak again. If that story gave you chills, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss another tale from the other side. Share this with a friend who loves horror, and if your stairs creak tonight, maybe sleep with the light on.